The alien widow mother stood in the long line outside the job center. The hot sun burned her thin skin, and dust covered her clothes. Her small daughter held her hand tightly, hungry and tired. The child's eyes looked up at her mother with silent questions. But the mother had no answer, only sadness in her heart. Everywhere around her, people whispered, "Why is she here again?" One human man muttered. "She should go back to her kind," a woman said sharply. The alien widow heard every word, but she kept her head low. Her heart whispered a single thought. Please, just one chance. One by one, workers stepped forward. Asking for jobs, humans were chosen quickly. When it was the widow's turn, the employer looked at her papers, then shook his head. "We don't hire aliens," he said coldly. "Especially widows with children, they bring trouble." She tried again at another stall, her voice cracked. "Please, I just need a job. I will work hard. I will do anything." The merchant frowned. "You aliens are lazy. I cannot risk." Another man pushed her away. "Go before I call the guards." Her daughter clung to her leg, frightened. Tears burned in the widow's eyes, but she stayed strong for her child. The hours passed and the line grew shorter. Still, no one hired her. Her body shook from hunger. Her child's stomach growled. Her hands trembled as she held her papers tighter. Her late husband's name was still written there, a memory of a man lost in war. She whispered to herself, "He died protecting them, but they will not even feed his widow." As the sun began to set, the crowd thinned, shadows stretched across the ground. The widow sat on a broken step, her child resting against her. For a moment, she felt the weight of despair crush her chest. She wanted to scream, to cry, to give up. But then she looked at her daughter's face and she forced herself to stay quiet. The child needed her to be strong. Around her, people laughed as they left with jobs, bags of food, coins of payment. No one looked at the alien widow. No one cared. She was invisible, unwanted. Her heart pounded with one thought. If I do not find work, my child will starve. She stood up again, even though her legs were weak. She tried one last time, walking to a merchant packing his stall. "Sir, please, I just need work, any work." The man did not even look at her. "Go away, alien." Her chest tightened, her throat closed. Her daughter began to cry softly. The widow picked her up, rocking her, whispering, "It will be okay, it will be okay." But inside she was breaking. She walked down the empty street, shops closed, lights dimmed. She thought, maybe tomorrow, maybe someone will give me a chance. But in her heart, hope was fading. She could not remember the last time anyone had smiled at her. She could not remember the last time she felt safe. That night, the widow and her child sat on the cold stone floor of an abandoned building. She gave the last piece of bread to her daughter. Her own stomach twisted with hunger, but she did not care. She watched her child eat slowly, carefully, as if she knew there would be no more. The mother whispered, "I promise I will find a way." But her voice shook and she wondered if her daughter believed her. The stars shone above the city. Ships flew past, glowing lights painting the sky. Humans celebrated in their homes, but the widow sat in silence, her eyes wet with tears she tried to hide. Her hands touched the small necklace her husband gave her before he died. She remembered his last words, "Stay strong for her no matter what." And so she wiped her tears and sat tall, but her heart felt empty. Unseen by her, a figure watched from the shadows. A man stood at the corner of the street, his coat hiding his face. His eyes followed the widow and her child with quiet interest. He did not move closer, but he did not leave. There was something strange in the way he looked, not hatred, not pity, but something else. As the widow held her daughter and closed her eyes in exhaustion, the man whispered to himself, "She is the one." The morning sun rose over the colony city, painting the cracked streets with pale light. The alien widow opened her tired eyes, her arms wrapped around her small daughter. The night had been long, filled with hunger and cold. Her body ached, but she forced herself to stand. Her child stirred weakly, whispering, "Mama, I'm hungry." The widow's heart broke. but she smiled gently. Today I will find work. She walked the streets again, holding her child's hand. Shops opened, merchants shouted, humans hurried by. No one looked at her, no one cared. She was just another alien face, unwanted, ignored. But then she felt it, the same heavy gaze from yesterday. Someone was watching her from across the street. The man in the long coat stood, his eyes hidden under the shadow of his hood. He did not move when she noticed him. He only raised his chin slightly, as if testing her courage. The widow looked away quickly, clutching her daughter close. Her heart whispered, "Why is he watching me?" The day dragged on with rejection after rejection. Every no cut deeper, every insult stabbed harder. By evening, she almost gave up. Her daughter leaned against her, weak from hunger. Tears burned the widow's eyes, but she held them back. That was when the man stepped forward. "You need work." His voice was low, steady. The widow froze, holding her child tighter. "Yes," she whispered carefully, "but no one will give me a chance." The man studied her for a moment, his eyes unreadable. "I have a place, a workshop," he said. "I need someone to clean, to help, nothing more." The widow hesitated, her mind racing. Why would a human offer her work when no one else would? What did he want in return? Her daughter looked at him with wide eyes. The man reached into his coat and pulled out a small piece of bread. "Give this to the child," he said simply. The widow's hands shook as she accepted it. Her daughter ate quickly, crumbs falling. "To the ground," the mother whispered. "Thank you." But her voice trembled with fear. "Come," the man said, turning without waiting. The widow's heart pounded. Her mind shouted warnings. But she had no choice. She followed him through narrow alleys. Her child's hand clung to her dress. Every step felt heavy, every corner filled with danger. Finally, they reached a tall old building at the edge of the city. Its walls were cracked, but faint blue lights glowed inside. The man opened the door and led them in. The workshop smelled of metal, oil, and dust. Strange machines rested against the walls. Tools and wires lay scattered across wooden tables. The widow's eyes widened. She had never seen such things so close. The man spoke calmly. "This will be your work. Clean here. Keep the space in order. Keep quiet, and I will pay you." The widow nodded quickly, relief flooding her chest. A job, finally, a way to feed her daughter. Still, her mind whispered, "Why me? Why now?" As she explored the workshop, her daughter wandered. The child stopped near a heavy door at the back of the room. It was different, metallic, sealed tightly. Strange blue light leaked from the edges, pulsing softly like a heartbeat. The girl tilted her head curiously. "Mama, what is this?" she asked. The widow turned sharply, pulling her child away. "I don't know," she whispered, but fear grew in her chest. The man noticed her glance at the door. His voice grew firm, almost sharp. "That room is not your concern. Never go near it." The widow lowered her head quickly. "Yes, I understand." But inside, her curiosity burned. What could be behind a door that glowed like living light? Why guard it so fiercely? That night, after her daughter fell asleep on a small cot in the corner, the widow sat quietly, her eyes wandering around the workshop. She thought of the human, his cold eyes, his calm voice, his strange kindness. Why help her when everyone else turned away? Why choose an alien widow, weak and poor? Her hands touched her husband's necklace again. She whispered, "If this is danger, guide me." The silence of the workshop was broken by a faint hum. The glowing door pulsed brighter, sending waves of blue light across the floor. The widow's breath caught in her throat. She rose slowly, her feet carrying her closer without thinking. The air near the door felt heavy, warm, alive. Her fingers trembled as she reached out. She told herself to stop, to step back. But her hand touched the metal. To her shock, the door trembled softly. A click echoed in the silent room. The glowing light flared, spilling into the darkness. The widow gasped, Her heart racing, the door was opening, and she had no idea what waited. Inside, the door creaked as it opened slowly. Blue light poured out, washing the workshop in a strange glow. The alien widow froze, her heart pounding in her chest. Her child still slept peacefully on the cot, unaware of the danger. The widow's trembling hand slipped back, but it was too late. The hidden door had answered her touch. Inside the room, shadows danced against the walls. Strange machines hummed softly, glowing with the same blue light. Wires twisted like roots, and screens flickered with alien symbols she could not read. The air felt alive, as if the room itself was breathing. Her eyes widened and fear wrapped around her heart. She whispered under her breath, "What is this place?" She stepped inside, her bare feet pressing against the cold metal floor. The hum grew louder, echoing in her ears. At the center stood a tall glass container filled with light. Inside it floated broken armor, scorched and old. Pieces of weapons rested against the walls, covered in dust, and on a table lay a metal device shaped like a star, its surface glowing faintly, her breath caught, her throat dry. These were not simple tools, not workshop machines. They were relics of war, alien and human mixed together. Some pieces looked like the armor her husband once wore before his death. She felt her knees weaken, memories crashing into her mind. Was this human hiding the past of the war, or planning for another? A sudden voice broke the silence. "What are you doing here?" The widow spun around, fear burning in her eyes. The human stood at the door, his face pale, his voice sharp. "I told you never to come here," he said, stepping inside quickly. His coat swayed as the blue light reflected against his face. "I'm sorry," the widow whispered, shaking. "I didn't mean to. I only heard the sound." The door opened by itself. The man's eyes narrowed, his jaw tight. "You don't understand. This is dangerous. If anyone finds this room, we both die." His words struck her like a knife. Her voice broke. "What is this? Why are you hiding these things?" For a moment the man was silent, then he closed the door behind him, locking it again. He walked past her and touched the glowing device on the table. His voice softened, but it carried weight. "These are memories, pieces of what was lost and what others would kill to take." He looked at her directly, his eyes sharp and cold. "You cannot speak of this to anyone, not even your child." The widow's lips trembled. She wanted to run, but her daughter slept in the other room. She wanted to scream, but her fear trapped her voice. Finally, she whispered, "Why me? Why did you give me work when no one else would?" The man stared at her, his face unreadable. "Because I needed someone invisible," he said slowly. "Someone no one would suspect. Someone desperate. Someone who understands loss." Her chest tightened, anger mixing with fear. "So you chose me because I am weak?" she asked. The man shook his head, his eyes suddenly softer. "No, because you are stronger than you know." His words confused her, but before she could answer, he leaned closer and spoke in a whisper. "If you wish to stay here, you must. Swear loyalty to me. No questions, no betrayal." The widow's body shook. Her child's face flashed in her mind. Her small hands, her hungry eyes. If she refused, they would return to the streets, with no food, no hope. If she agreed, she would be tied to this man, this secret, this danger. Her voice cracked. "And if I say no?" The man's face turned hard. "Then you walk away tonight and you never return, but understand this. Once you leave, you will not survive." Silence hung between them, heavy as stone. The widow lowered her head, tears stinging her eyes. She whispered, "I will stay, for my daughter." The man studied her for a long moment, then gave a single nod. "Good. Then you are safe, for now." But deep inside, the widow's heart twisted. Safe? No, this was not safety. This was a cage, a dangerous secret, a path she could not escape. And yet she had no choice. For her child, she would endure anything, even this. That night, As the workshop grew quiet again, the widow lay beside her daughter, holding her close. Her mind raced with images of the glowing relics, the strange machines, the human's sharp eyes. She whispered to herself, "What have I stepped into?" Her child stirred in her sleep, tiny fingers clutching her mother's necklace. The widow kissed her forehead, trying to stay strong, but in the hidden room, behind the locked door, the blue light pulsed brighter. The machines hummed louder as if something had awakened, something that would not stay hidden for long. The night dragged on, heavy and restless. The widow could not sleep. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw the glowing relics behind the locked door, the broken armor, the strange device, the blue light that seemed alive. Her heart told her the man was hiding something more dangerous than he admitted. But her mind whispered the truth she could not escape. She needed him. Her daughter slept soundly beside her, unaware of the storm her mother carried inside. The widow watched her small chest rise and fall. She brushed a strand of hair from the child's face and whispered, "I will protect you no matter what it takes." At dawn, the man entered the workshop again. He moved with purpose, carrying tools and wires. His eyes flicked toward the hidden, checking the lock. The widow noticed the way his hand lingered there. As if he feared something might slip out, she felt a shiver crawl down her spine. "Begin cleaning," he said shortly. His voice was calm, but distant. The widow obeyed, sweeping the dust, tidying the clutter, but she kept watching him from the corner of her eye. He worked quickly, but his movements were careful, precise, like someone preparing for a battle that had not yet begun. Finally, she could not hold her tongue. "Why do you hide those things?" she asked softly. The man froze, his back stiff. He turned slowly, his sharp eyes pinning her in place. "I warned you," he said, his voice low. "Never ask about that room." Her heart hammered, but she stood her ground. "I have a right to know," she whispered. "I saw armor like that before. My husband wore it when he went to war and he never came back." The man's face hardened, a shadow passing over his eyes. For a moment he said nothing. Then he sighed, setting his tool aside. "You are not wrong," he said, his voice quieter now. "What you saw in that room, they are relics from the war. Weapons, machines, secrets the government wanted buried." Her breath caught, her chest tight. "Why do you have them?" she asked. The man's eyes darkened. "Because I was part of that war," he said, "and because I could not let the truth be erased." The widow stared at him, her hands trembling. You fought in the war?" He nodded, his jaw tight. "I fought, I killed, I survived, but I learned the truth too late. The war was not what they told us. It was not about peace, it was about power." Her stomach twisted. Her husband had died. In that war, believing he was protecting the future, now this human told her it was all lies. Tears welled in her eyes, anger rising in her chest. "My husband died for nothing?" she whispered. The man shook his head, his voice firm. "No, he died for you, for your child, for hope. Even if the leaders betrayed us, his sacrifice was not meaningless." The widow's knees weakened, and she sank onto a chair, her hands covering her face. Memories of her husband's last goodbye flooded back, his promise, his smile, his courage. She wanted to believe his death had meaning, but doubt tore at her heart. The man stepped closer, his tone softer. "I did not save you by accident," he said. The widow looked up, her tearful eyes searching his face. "Then why?" she asked, her voice raw. He hesitated, then spoke slowly. "Because you are one of the few who still knows pain, and pain keeps you honest. The powerful fear those who have nothing left to lose." The words struck her deeply, but before she could respond, a sharp sound echoed from the hidden room. The door rattled, the blue light flaring brighter. Both of them turned, fear flashing in their eyes. The man rushed forward, unlocking the panel and entering quickly. The widow followed, unable to stop herself. Inside, the relics pulsed with life. The glass container shook, the broken armor inside glowing faintly. The strange, star-shaped device lit up, symbols racing across its surface. The widow gasped, clutching her chest. "What is happening?" The man cursed under his breath, slamming buttons on the wall. "It's waking," he growled. "Someone must have triggered it." The widow's eyes widened. Her daughter, she remembered how the little girl had touched the door yesterday. Curious and innocent, her heart sank. The man turned toward her, his eyes blazing. "Tell me the truth. Did your child touch anything in this room?" Her lips trembled, her voice breaking. "She's just a child, she didn't know." The man's face twisted with fear and urgency. "Then we are in danger, grave danger. The device sends signals and now others will come. They will not stop. Until they find it." The widow felt her blood run cold. "Others? Who?" The man looked at her with eyes that carried years of battle. "The same ones who killed your husband." Her breath shattered in her chest, her body numb. The past she had tried to escape was alive again, hunting her and her child. Her hands clutched her necklace, her husband's last gift. Tears blurred her vision as she whispered, "Then what do we do now?" The man's voice was low but steady. "Now, we prepare." But outside, above the colony city, the night sky flickered. With distant lights, ships moving in formation, growing closer. The storm was coming and there was no turning back. The workshop was filled with the sound of humming machines. The blue glow from the hidden room still pulsed against the walls. The widow held her daughter close, her heart racing. Her mind spun with the man's words, "The same ones who killed. Your husband are coming." It felt like the ground had been pulled away from under her feet. She could not breathe, could not think clearly. The man stood at the console, typing furiously. His coat swung as he moved, his face hard with focus. "Listen to me," he said sharply. "We have little time. If they track the signal, they will arrive soon." The widow whispered, her voice cracking. "Why should I trust you? You hide weapons, secrets, lies. You are part of the war that killed him." Her tears spilled, her hands trembling as she held her child tighter. The man turned, his eyes cold but burning with something deeper. "You have no choice," he said. "The streets will not protect you, the people will not help you, they will give you away the moment soldiers arrive." His words cut like knives, because she knew they were true. She remembered the way humans turned their backs when she begged. For food, no one would risk themselves for her and her daughter. Her chest ached with the weight of decision. If she stayed, she risked her child's life in the middle of this man's secret war. If she left, she faced hunger, betrayal, and certain death once the enemies came. Her voice shook as she asked, "Why me? Why did you choose me of all people?" The man's gaze softened for the first time. "Because I know what it means to lose everything," he said quietly. "I saw it in your eyes that first night. You understand pain, you understand survival, and pain makes you stronger than the rest." His words left her silent. Her mind wanted to reject him, but her heart whispered he was right. Pain was all she had carried since her husband's death, and now that pain was pulling her toward a dangerous path, her daughter tugged at her sleeve, her small voice breaking the silence. "Mama, I'm scared," the child whispered. The widow knelt, hugging her tightly. She kissed her forehead and whispered, "I will keep you safe, I promise." But even as she said it, her heart twisted with fear. How could she keep such a promise when she was standing at the edge of betrayal? The man approached slowly, his tone steady but heavy. "If you trust me, you stay. You follow my rules, and I protect you. But if you walk out that door, you put her in the hands of the same killers who took your husband." The widow lifted, her head, her eyes burning with anger. "And if you betray us?" she asked, her voice sharp. His answer was quiet, almost sorrowful. "Then I am no better than the men I once fought." Silence fell, broken only by the hum of the machines. The widow looked at her daughter, at the necklace her husband had left. Her chest heaved with the weight of her choice. Finally, with trembling lips, she whispered, "I will stay, but not because I trust you. I stay for her, for my child." The man gave a slow nod, accepting her words without pride. "Then we fight together," he said, But before relief could touch her heart, a soft beep echoed from the console. The man's eyes flicked to the screen, his face darkening. "They're here," he whispered. The widow's breath caught in her throat. Already? She had barely chosen her path, and the storm was upon them. The man rushed to the workshop floor, pulling open a hidden chest. Inside lay weapons, strange rifles, blades, glowing devices. He tossed one toward the widow. "Take it," he ordered. She stepped back, shaking her head. "I can't, I don't know how." His voice rose, urgent and firm. "You will learn, or you will die. There is no middle ground." Her hands trembled as she picked up the weapon. It was heavy, colder than she expected. Her reflection shone faintly against its metal. For a moment she saw not herself, but a soldier's widow turning into something else entirely. Her stomach churned, but her daughter's frightened eyes gave her strength. The man loaded his rifle, his movements swift and practiced. "Listen carefully," he said. "Once they arrive, they will search the colony. They will find this place, and when they do, we must be ready." The widow swallowed hard, her grip tightening on the weapon. She whispered to herself, For her I will fight." Outside, the night sky trembled with the sound of engines. Shadows of ships cut across the stars. The colony lights flickered as fear spread through the streets. Voices rose outside, people shouting, running. The widow pressed, her child against her chest, her body shaking, her heart cried out, "This is not my war, why must I suffer again?" The man stood tall, his weapon glowing faintly in the blue light. He glanced at her and said, "They will give you no mercy, so do not give them a chance." His words chilled her, but also lit a spark inside her chest. Perhaps she had been weak too long. Perhaps survival now demanded something darker. The workshop shook as something landed outside. A heavy crash, metal grinding against stone. The widow gasped. Her daughter whimpered. The man raised his rifle, his voice sharp and calm. "They're here." The widow's hands clutched her weapon tightly. Her heart raced with terror, but her eyes burned with determination. Trust or betrayal, hope or despair. Her choice was already made. And now there was no turning back. The ground shook beneath the workshop. Dust fell from the ceiling and tools rattled on the tables. The widow held her child tightly, her heart beating like thunder. Outside, voices shouted in the distance, heavy boots striking the ground. The enemy had landed. The man raised his rifle and moved toward the door. "Stay here," he ordered firmly. "Don't move until I say." But the widow's voice broke. "They will kill us, won't they?" His jaw tightened, and he answered without looking back. "They won't stop until they have what they came for." The widow swallowed hard, clutching the weapon in her shaking hands. Her daughter buried her face in her dress, whispering, "Mama, I'm scared." The mother kissed her head, forcing her voice to be steady. "I will protect you," she whispered. "I promise." But deep inside, her soul trembled. A loud crash shook the walls. The door to the workshop rattled as something heavy slammed against it. The man cursed under his breath, setting traps along the walls. Blue lights flickered as hidden machines powered on. The widow watched in fear and awe. This man had prepared for war. Then, a sound from the hidden room drew her attention. She turned, eyes widening. The strange star-shaped device glowed brighter than ever. Symbols raced across its surface, pulsing in rhythm with the ground shaking outside. Her blood ran cold. Her daughter tugged her arm, whispering softly, "Mama, I touched that before. It lit up when I pressed it." The widow froze. Horror flooding her chest, her child's innocent mistake had awakened this thing. Her voice cracked. You started all of this?" The girl looked up with tears in her eyes. "I'm sorry, Mama, I didn't know." The widow's hands trembled as she held her daughter. But before she could speak, the man's voice thundered. "She activated it?" He stormed toward them, his eyes blazing with urgency. The widow shielded her daughter, stepping in front of her. "She's just a child," she cried. "Don't you dare blame her." The man's face twisted with fury and fear. "You don't understand," he shouted. "That device sends a signal, and now they know exactly where we are." The widow's heart sank. The ships outside, The soldiers. They were here because of her daughter. She felt guilt crash into her chest like a wave. The door shook again, cracking under the force of an enemy strike. The man gripped his weapon tightly. "We fight or we die," he growled. His eyes flicked to the widow. "Your choice is over now. There is no more waiting." Her knees trembled, but she forced herself to stand tall. She raised the weapon with both hands. Her breath came sharp and uneven. But when she looked at her daughter, she felt something inside her harden. She would not let her child suffer the same fate as her husband. The workshop door burst open. A blast of smoke and light filled the air. Dark figures stepped through. Armored soldiers, their helmets glowing red. The widow's stomach twisted. She recognized the symbol on their armor. The same mark burned onto the weapons that killed her husband. Her eyes filled with rage. The man opened fire, the sound of energy blasts filling the room. Blue sparks flashed as his bullet struck the enemy's armor. The widow screamed as she fired wildly, her weapon shaking in her hands. The recoil nearly knocked her over, but she did not stop. Her shot struck the walls, the floor, the ceiling, finally hitting one soldier in the chest. The enemy stumbled back, sparks flying from his armor. The child screamed, covering her ears as the battle raged. The widow grabbed her arm, pulling her behind a heavy table for cover. Her heart pounded, her breath ragged. She wanted to run, but there was nowhere left to go. The man shouted, "Stay low, keep her safe." He moved with deadly skill, every shot precise, every step controlled. But more soldiers poured through the door, their weapons glowing. The widow's terror grew. No matter how skilled the man was, they were outnumbered. Then, the star-shaped device in the hidden room screamed with light. A high-pitched hum shook the workshop. The walls vibrated and the blue glow spread across every machine. The soldiers stopped, their helmets flickering with static. The widow covered her child's eyes, her body shaking. "What is it doing?" she cried. The man's face went pale. "It's awakening the weapon," he said, his voice strained. "A weapon?" The widow gasped. He nodded grimly. "Not just a weapon, a call, a beacon, something ancient, something bigger than this war." The widow's chest tightened, her fear mixing with despair. If this was true, her daughter's small mistake had not only brought soldiers, it had awakened something far worse. Something that could consume them all, the man shouted. "Protect her at all costs." His eyes locked on the widow, fierce and commanding. "If they take that child, if they take her blood, they will finish what they started with your husband." The widow's heart shattered. She clutched her daughter tighter, whispering, "No one will take you from me." But as she spoke, one of the soldiers broke through the man's defense. The soldier lunged forward, his weapon raised. The widow screamed, raising her rifle. The air was filled with light and sound, and then everything went white. The blinding white light swallowed everything. The widow clutched her daughter tightly, eyes shut, heart racing. The sound of battle vanished, replaced by a low hum that filled the air. When she dared to open her eyes, the world around her had changed. The workshop glowed with streams of blue energy. The star-shaped device floated in midair, spinning slowly. The soldiers staggered back, their weapons sparking, their armor failing. The man stood tall, his rifle lowered, his eyes wide with shock. "It has awakened fully," he whispered, almost to himself. The widow's breath came heavy. She held her daughter close, her mind racing. "What does it want? What is it doing?" she cried. The man's face was grim. "It is no machine of war, it is a key." And now the lock has opened. As if answering his words, the ceiling above cracked with thunder. The sky outside lit up with unnatural light. Massive shapes moved through the clouds, ships larger than anything the colony had ever seen. The widow's stomach twisted in fear. "More enemies?" she asked, her voice trembling. The man shook his head slowly. "No. Something older. Something worse." The soldiers turned their weapons again, trying to fight through the hum, but the blue light burst outward, throwing them back like ragdolls. Their screams echoed as their armor cracked and failed. The widow covered her child's eyes. Unable to watch, the man grabbed her arm roughly, pulling her toward the back. "We cannot stay here. Once this finishes, the whole colony will burn." But the widow stopped, her legs refusing to move. Her voice shook as she shouted, "Why? Is my child connected to this? Why did you say they wanted her blood?" The man's eyes flicked to the girl, then back to the widow. His jaw clenched. "Because your husband wasn't just a soldier. He carried a code inside him, a secret he never told you, and it passed to her." The widow's chest froze. She looked down at her daughter, small and fragile in her arms. Her husband's necklace pressed between them, glowing faintly in the blue light. Tears filled her eyes. All this time, he died with this secret, and now she carries it. The man nodded grimly. That's why they killed him, and why they will never stop hunting her. The widow's heart broke all over again. Her child was not only her last piece of love, she was also the key to something greater, something that could destroy worlds. The walls shook as more soldiers forced their way in. The man raised his weapon, firing with deadly precision. "Go," he shouted. "Take her and run." But the widow stood her ground, her rifle in hand. Her voice rose above the chaos, fierce and unyielding. "No, I will not run again, not this time." For the first time, fire lit her eyes. She aimed, pulled the trigger, and struck a soldier square in the chest. He fell, sparks flying. The man glanced at her, surprise flickering in his hardened gaze. "You fight like him," he muttered. Her lips trembled, but she whispered, "He taught me to survive, even in his absence." The battle raged inside the workshop. Energy blasts lit the walls. Smoke and fire filled the air. The widow fought. With every ounce of strength, her body ached, her arms shook, but she did not stop. Each shot she fired was for her husband, for her child, for the pain of years of rejection. She was no longer invisible, no longer weak. She was a mother fighting, for the only thing left to her. Then with a deafening roar, the star-shaped device unleashed its final wave. Blue energy ripped through the air. The remaining soldiers screamed as they were thrown back into the night. The workshop walls cracked. The ceiling caved in. The widow fell to her knees, clutching her daughter. The man shielded them both with his body as the storm passed, and then silence. The air was thick with dust and smoke. The workshop lay in ruins, the relic shattered, the device gone. The widow opened her eyes slowly, coughing. Her daughter whimpered softly but was alive. Relief washed over her in a flood of tears. The man staggered to his feet, his face cut and bloodied, but his eyes burned with determination. "It's over for now," he said, his voice hoarse. The widow looked around at the destruction. "Over," she repeated, her voice breaking. He shook his head. "No, this was only the beginning. Now they know she exists. They will come again." Her chest tightened with fear, but also with resolve. She lifted her child into her arms, holding her close. "No matter what comes," she whispered, "I will not let them take her." The man studied her in silence, then gave a slow nod. "You are stronger than I imagined," he said softly. The widow wiped her tears, her voice steady for the first time. "I am not just a widow, I am her mother, and I will fight for her future." Outside, the colony was in chaos. Fires burned, sirens wailed, people fled into the streets. The stars above glowed with the faint light of ships retreating into the dark. The storm had passed, but the scars remained. As the widow stepped out of the broken workshop, her daughter in her arms, the man followed silently, his rifle at his side. Neither spoke, both knowing the truth. The war was not over. It had only just begun, but for the first time the widow did not feel alone.